You've probably driven on a road that already feels worn. Maybe it's cracking along the edges, maybe it's riddled with potholes, or maybe it was just repaired a few years ago and is already breaking apart again. That's normal, right? Now picture this, a road that was built more than 2,000 years ago, not with modern equipment, not with asphalt, and certainly not with steel reinforcement. And yet, in some places, it's still intact today. You can walk on it, run your hand across the stone, and see the subtle dips carved out by centuries of feet and wagon wheels. It's a strange contrast, isn't it? Our technology is more advanced than ever, but somehow the roads built by Roman engineers seem to have outlasted many of the ones we use today. So how exactly did they manage that? This isn't just a story about ancient engineering. It's about how long-term thinking, attention to context, and a deep understanding of terrain and materials came together to build something that wasn't just functional, but meant to endure. In this video, we are going to explore the full picture: how Roman roads were designed, what made them different, how they shaped the empire, and why so many of them have stood the test of time, while modern highways, despite all our resources, often fall apart. If this kind of topic resonates with you, the kind that looks beneath the surface and asks why things really work, you might consider subscribing. That way, you will keep getting stories like this, built with care, just like the roads we are about to uncover. Let's start from the top, or more accurately, from the ground up. At its peak, the Roman Empire maintained over 75,000 miles of roads. These were not just local tracks or loose dirt paths. They were engineered corridors that connected the furthest corners of the empire, from the rainy hills of Britain to the sun-baked deserts of Syria. To the Romans, a road was not only part of the infrastructure, it was a tool of control. It allowed legions to move quickly, trade to flourish, tax collectors to reach distant provinces, and imperial orders to travel faster than ever before. Roads were how Rome extended its influence, held its territory, and made its presence felt. Unlike many modern infrastructure projects, they were built with that political intent from the beginning. One of the most famous examples is Via Appia, begun in 312 BCE. It linked Rome with the southern city of Brindisi and became a vital artery for commerce and conquest. Walk along it today and you will still find original paving stones in place, polished by time and use. These roads were not just built for utility, they were symbolic. Straight, wide, and elevated, they cut through landscapes with authority. That straightness was not for show. Roman engineers prided themselves on building roads that took the shortest, most direct route possible, even if it meant cutting through forests, tunneling through hills, or bridging wetlands. The goal was always efficiency, not just in design, but in movement. The network was so well planned that many of today's roads across Europe still follow Roman paths. In France, Italy, and the UK, major highways are quite literally layered over ancient routes. Roman road alignments were so logical and so durable that later civilizations kept using them. These roads were meant to outlive the people who built them. And in many places, they did. But that's just the big picture. The real secret to their survival lies in how they were actually built, starting not at the surface, but several layers below it. When you look at a Roman road today, what you are seeing is just the surface. The real brilliance lies underneath, in the structure that most people never notice. Roman roads were engineered in layers, each with a specific purpose, and built with the intention that the road would last, not just for years, but for generations. It started with a trench, often several feet deep, dug directly into the earth. This was not just to anchor the road. It was to protect the road from movement, erosion, and moisture. The trench would then be filled with the statumen, a base layer made of large stones. This created a solid, immovable foundation that could carry serious weight without shifting. Above that came the rudus, a layer of smaller stones mixed with lime mortar. When compacted, this formed a kind of primitive concrete. It was strong, but also porous enough to help drain water downward and away from the road core. The next layer was the nucleus, a smoother mixture of gravel, sand, and sometimes crushed brick, also bound with lime. This created a level, compacted surface on which the top layer could rest. And finally, the visible surface was polygonal paving stones, often made from hard volcanic rock, like basalt. These were hand-shaped and laid with such precision that in many cases no mortar was needed. The stones were fitted tightly together, and the road was given a crown, a slight arch in the center, to ensure water would flow to the edges, not collect in the middle. While this might seem like over-engineering, this defensive design had an important purpose. Everything about it was aimed at reducing water damage, spreading weight evenly, and keeping the structure intact through time, weather, and use. But what's even more impressive is how adaptable the system was. Roman engineers did not apply a one-size-fits-all method. In wet climates, they emphasized drainage. In mountainous areas, they added retaining walls. In volcanic zones, they used pozzolanic ash to make their concrete set underwater. This kind of flexibility, a base system adjusted locally, is something modern infrastructure still struggles with. And no, Roman roads were not perfect, but they were smart, layered, and resilient. And that's exactly why some of them are still in place, while roads built just decades ago are already cracking. In theory, modern roads should be better. We have access to advanced materials, computer modeling, heavy machinery, and decades of research in civil engineering. But for all that progress, most of our roads today do not last nearly as long as the ones built 2,000 years ago. So, what is the difference? First, the purpose. Most modern roads are built for speed and scale. Governments and contractors are under pressure to construct highways quickly and cost-effectively, which often means using the cheapest materials that meet minimum standards. Roman roads, by contrast, were not built on tight timelines or competitive bids. They were built with endurance in mind, using local materials selected for durability, not cost. Second, the traffic. Roman roads carried foot soldiers, carts, and animals. Today, the roads carry vehicles weighing tens of thousands of pounds, moving at high speeds, generating constant vibration and wear. Modern roads must flex under that pressure, but that flexibility comes at a cost. It creates microfractures in the pavement that, over time, lead to cracks, potholes, and collapse. Third, the material. Most modern roads use asphalt, which is cheap and easy to work with, but it is also vulnerable to temperature changes, ultraviolet radiation, and water intrusion. Asphalt softens in the heat, becomes brittle in the cold, and erodes quickly when water seeps in. Roman engineers avoided this by building with stone and lime, materials that resist weathering and naturally drain water away from the foundation. And then there is maintenance. Roman roads were regularly maintained by soldiers, locals, or public officials. When something wore down, it was replaced, not paved over. Today, maintenance is often reactive, not preventive. Small issues are ignored until they become expensive repairs. To the Romans, a road was a symbol of Rome's reach, strength, and order, and they were built to prove it. That's why so many Roman roads led directly to Rome, or radiated from it. The very structure of the network reinforced the idea that all paths ultimately led back to the center of power. All roads lead to Rome was not just a saying, it was a design. Philosophy. There was also a religious and ceremonial dimension. Roads were often built with milestones that marked distances and celebrated emperors. Compare that with today. Modern roads are utilitarian. There is no ceremony, no lasting message. If a modern highway is forgotten or replaced, no one writes about it. No one carves an inscription into the asphalt. But even though we no longer use Roman construction methods, their roads still shape how we move through the world, sometimes without us even realizing it. In the UK, for example, the modern A5 road follows the route of Watling Street, a Roman military road stretching from Dover to Wroxeter. In France, sections of the Via Appia became part of the national road system. And in Italy, the ancient Via Flaminia still functions as a key artery connecting Rome to the north. Roman road builders understood terrain. They chose routes that offered stable ground, natural elevation for drainage, and easy access to local materials. They did not need satellite imagery, just a deep understanding of geography and purpose. That mindset, design with context, is still one of the most valuable principles in modern engineering. It reminds us that infrastructure should respond to its environment, not just impose itself on it. So while the stones may have aged, the thinking behind them has not. And maybe that is the most lasting part of all. It's easy to think of Roman roads as relics. Fascinating, sure, but irrelevant to the pace and demands of modern life. But if anything, they raise questions we still haven't fully answered. Questions like, what does it mean to build something to last? What would happen if we stopped designing systems for convenience and started designing them for endurance? Roman roads remind us that infrastructure isn't just about materials, it's about mindset. The people who built these roads didn't have 10-year plans or short-term goals. They were building for future generations, roads that would outlive them and then some. Compare that to today, where highways are often built with a projected lifespan of 20 to 30 years, and maintenance is deferred until the damage is already visible. The result is constant repairs, wasted resources, and frustrated drivers. Now, Roman roads weren't perfect either. From a design standpoint, their approach was grounded in clarity, durability, and strategic intent. They used the materials they had, adapted to the environment, and refused to cut corners. In a world where fast often beats good, and short-term efficiency trumps long-term stability, maybe the most valuable thing we can learn from Roman roads isn't how they were built, but why they were built the way they were. So what can we take away from all of this? Roman roads did not survive by accident. They were the result of thoughtful engineering, local adaptation, and a mindset that prioritized longevity over speed. They were not built to impress shareholders or meet quarterly deadlines. Instead, they were built to last, to serve, and to represent something bigger than the sum of their stones. Today, we have more tools, more data, and better materials than the Romans could have ever imagined. But sometimes, in our rush to build quickly and cheaply, we forget the basics: solid foundations, proper drainage, realistic maintenance, and respect for the landscape. Maybe we do not need to go back to carving stone by hand or laying roads with pickaxes, but we could bring back the idea that infrastructure should be more than disposable. If you found this video insightful, or if you just enjoy learning why some things stand the test of time while others don't, feel free to subscribe. No pressure, just a way to keep these kinds of topics on your radar without the noise. Thanks for watching, and next time you hit a pothole, maybe remember, the Romans conquered half the world and still had time to build better roads than us. Just saying.